During the 6 long years of World War II, behind the fighting forces, there was another war, a secret war, fought by scientists and engineers. German scientists had been deeply involved in the rearmament of their country since the mid-1930s, and they had without doubt placed Germany ahead of all other countries in the development of advanced weapons. But it was a challenge that British scientists were well placed to meet, due in no small measure to a far-sighted decision taken in 1938 to compile a register of some 5,000 scientists who would be available in the event of war.
Throughout the war, at every stage, we were far quicker in marrying the expanding technology that was coming along and the needs of the war, far quicker and more original and spontaneous than the Germans were.
In the beginning of the war, our fighter planes had a better speed than yours. Our radar system worked already. We had those Würzburg Geräte, and also we were starting already with a V2 development. But this was the advantage of us only because we started much earlier.
May 1940, and the Luftwaffe begins sending night bombers to fly over the blacked-out towns and countryside of Britain. Not the massed formations that people have been fearing, but lone aircraft, mainly Junkers 88s and Heinkel 111s, and often flying at great height. They're plotted by our early radar, and it is at first thought that they're merely probing our night defences. But later it's realised that these nocturnal wanderers have a far more sinister purpose. The German aircrew are proving early forms of what will later become known as electronic warfare, in this case a system of highly secret radio beams. It will enable enemy bombers to locate vital targets anywhere in Britain, even on the darkest of nights. The German code name for the first of these beams is Knickerbein, the crooked leg. September 1938, and the transport squadrons of the German Luftwaffe, which has only been in official existence for 3 years, take part in Operation Green, the occupation of Czechoslovakia. This new, efficient air force has been tested in Spain, and now consists of 3,300 operational aircraft. If war had come in 1938, the RAF would have had to meet this formidable force with just 500 biplane fighters. Only 90 Hurricanes, only 1 squadron of Spitfires were in operational service. The question was, could we possibly catch up? The Second World War begins on the 1st of September 1939 with the attack on Poland. The Me-109 fighters of the German Air Force find the obsolete Polish aircraft easy meat. The Poles are hopelessly outclassed. In just 2 days, their air force simply ceases to exist, most of its aircraft being destroyed on the ground. Without modern fighter opposition, the cities and towns are defenseless, and the Stuka dive bombers blast a path for the armies below. The Germans have added sirens to the Stukas, called Jericho trumpets, to enhance the terror aspect of this new form of warfare. Blitzkrieg, lightning war, and lightning it proves to be. Poland is smashed in just 28 days. Norway, Denmark and the Low Countries soon follow. And in England, people begin to wonder when the might of the German Air Force will be used against them. The threat is real enough and is made the more ominous by Hitler's boast of new secret weapons, against which he claims we will be defenceless. Confirmation of these unspecified weapons comes from a most unexpected source, Germany, or at least from a German. In November 1939, the British naval attaché in Oslo receives an anonymous letter, which must rate as one of the most incredible windfalls in the history of espionage. The Oslo Report, as it becomes known, lands on the desk of Dr. R.V. Jones of Air Ministry Scientific Intelligence.
And the letter purported to come from somebody who wished us well, who, if one could believe it, knew a great deal about German research developments. And he said there were a number of things going on. He told us about the Ju-88 being used as a night fighter, as a dive bomber, for example. He mentioned Peenemünde. He also mentioned that they were developing large rockets, although he didn't actually say they were being done at Peenemünde. And it was the first mention we'd had of Peenemünde. He also told us about the development of pilotless aircraft that was going on. Two kinds of German radar, one of which he said had been used against us in the raids where we'd suffered heavy losses on Wilhelmshaven and Kiel. And most important for this particular story was the idea, what he called Fliegerentfernungsmessgeräte, a device for measuring the distance of an aircraft, for example, for bombing. Didn't talk about platform beams at all, but did mention this method of ranging whereby one sent out a modulated wave from a ground station up to the aircraft, relayed it back from the aircraft to the ground, and the delay in the transit time, the pilot could be told from the ground how far away he was.
Our own early warning radar could tell us how far away enemy bombers were, but it was not at that time much use against night intruders. However, an RAF night fighter, directed by ground radar onto the track of a solitary Heinkel 111, made a lucky visual contact and the enemy aircraft was shot down. The crashed aircraft was examined as a matter of routine by RAF technical officers. They salvaged a scrap of paper which seemed to be a sort of aid memoir for the navigator. And it read, in translation of course, navigation aid, radio beacons working on plan A. Additionally, from 0600 hours, beacon Dernen. Light beacon after dark, radio beacon Nickerbine from 0600 hours on 315 degrees. While the intelligence officers were working out what that meant, another Heinkel 111 from the same squadron, KG-26, crashed a few nights later. It bore the same identification marks, 1HAC, and seemed to be a replacement aircraft for the earlier loss. It too carried compromising literature, a personal diary from one of the aircrew which bore an entry for the 5th of March 1940. It read, 2/3 of the staffel or squadron are on leave. In the afternoon, studied Nickerbine and collapsible boats. Well, collapsible boats are clear enough, but there was that strange word Nickerbine occurring again. What could it possibly mean? Because Nickerbine happens to be the name for a magic raven in a German fairy story, although the literal translation is simply a crooked leg. One of the obvious ways of finding out more about Nickerbine was obviously through the careful interrogation of German aircrew who had parachuted from their planes over Britain. And during one such session at the Trent Hall Interrogation Centre, the pilot clearly hedged when Nickerbine was mentioned. The interrogator picked up the point, and eventually the pilot revealed that Nickerbine was something like excorate. Clearly he believed we already knew everything about excorate, which we didn't. And he went on to say that they were shortwave radio beams aimed from Germany over Britain. So the trail had suddenly come alive, and the knowledge from these interrogations, together with information from other sources, made it clear that excorate and Nickerbine were radio navigation aids for attacking bombers. And about this time, R.V. Jones thought that the evidence, though tenuous, was sufficient for a report to the Chiefs of Staff, which he called Indications of New German Weapons Against Britain.
I wrote down. I mean, if one thinks of what could have happened, for example, to Derby, when, if with the Knickbein, all the German Air Force virtually could have plastered Derby. Well, we saw what happened when things went wrong, as at Coventry. Well, that would have happened every night.